Hello there, and welcome to my developer walkthrough for the ball Quizaz. My name is Jacopo Antonucci, and in this video I will take you through the levels and puzzles I designed and finalized for this game. Working on this game, I had the role of a level designer, level artist, and a major part in finalizing the project combined with final polish. And I will talk about the various design aspects, thoughts, and decisions that together made up my process. I was tasked with creating 4 areas which involved one of the first hub puzzles, one of the later hub puzzles, the intersection between the game's 2 major areas, and the final puzzle of the game. And I will talk about them in a chronological order. So, the set piece of the game is a major hub connected to 6 different puzzles through a pipe system, and all puzzles must be completed in order to progress. As goes with all hub puzzles, the ball will enter the area through a pipe above the player and must then exit through a pipe below the player. As the pool room is the first puzzle of the hub, I wanted it to be quite easy, easing the player and not overwhelming him for what's to come. So simply enough, the player must shoot the ball with the right angle and the right amount of force into the pipe leading back to the hub. By stepping on the player button, a pad heightens before the player and a fence lowers in the distance. The pad is for the player to have a more comfortable shooting angle, and the fence has 2 reasons. First, it's to make sure the player can't break the puzzle, only allowing the ball to enter the pipe through this area, and secondly, it catches the player's attention. With the ball in the pipe, it will now exit the area below the player. At first, this area was quite different. The player had to shoot the ball onto a ledge and guide it through a system of pipes to reach its goal. But in the end, it involved too many steps for it to be the first puzzle. And furthermore, the really intriguing part of the puzzle was the precise aiming required to get the ball into a specific area. Therefore, I stripped the puzzle of unnecessary components while maintaining the fun factor. In terms of visuals, I wanted the area to look deserted. Therefore, I worked a lot with greenery taking over, breaking up the floor tiles, as well as the pool area. And above the player, the heavy mountain rocks are giving the support beams a run for their money. With these levels, I really wanted to challenge myself in terms of player guidance, and specifically through the environment. So when entering the room, I want the player to be interested in the middle section. So both the beams, floor patterns, and the central structure all point to the middle, encouraging the player to head in that direction. And lastly, the light in the far distance has a pinkish color sticking out from the rest of the room. The lava maze is a later hub puzzle where the player guides the ball underneath him while simultaneously taking an alternate route. Seeing the hammer button in the distance will intrigue the player to head in that direction, but it will soon be apparent that the ball can't fit through the opening. Having to find another way for the ball, the player will be presented with a goal for both himself and the ball. And with the ball in the maze, it can now progress beneath the player. Using the first hammer button, the player will witness that they affect blockades in the maze, opening new paths for the ball. So with this blockade in the way, the player must place the ball on the opposite side, tucked away from the blockade. And using the hammer button, the ball can now progress. And the same tactic goes for the next blockade as well. Getting the ball past the blockades, it will be guided towards the goal. Completing the puzzle, the player has a convenient way back for a quick exit without retreading old ground. With the visuals, I had quite a challenge to make the room look good based on the puzzle. At first, it was too apparent that the room was based on the puzzle and built around it. To subtly hide the puzzle necessary components, I made the area more symmetrical while closing off areas not meant for the player. And with the entrance gate, I had to make it small enough for the ball not to pass. In previous iterations, the door felt weirdly narrow, but by using these thorns, it feels less cramped. With them, the entrance looks bigger than what it actually is. Completing all 6 hub puzzles and leaving the hub behind, the player enters a cave. This is the intersection between the game's 2 major areas, which consist of the more rough, rocky architecture the player just left behind him, and on the other side awaits the golden, more luxurious part of the game, notifying the player he's getting closer to the exit. The cave entrance is not really a puzzle, but instead holds a small challenge for the player to cross. And reaching the bridge that separates the 2 factions from each other, the individual steps move too fast for the player to cross. But with the rhythm of the wave movement, the ball has the speed needed. Shooting the ball in sync with the wave, it will pass and hit the ball button. The pillars rise and lock in position, creating a bridge for the player. The stalactites above the bridge ensures the player can't shoot the ball above the bridge, cheating the challenge. And with the slopes next to the bridge, the player can conveniently pull the ball back up if not succeeding to get the ball across. With the last 2 buttons being pressed at the same time, several golden doors roll out of the way, exposing the entrance to the golden parts of Quizaz. As caves are organic and not planned like architectural structures, I wanted it to feel organic and imperfect. With canyons reaching beyond what the player can see, the cave will feel bigger as if it belongs to a larger system, hopefully lending more credibility to the feeling of atmosphere. And here, I also worked a lot with desertedness and destruction where the road has cracked and separated over time. The last puzzle of the game is centered around a big magnet hanging from an opening in the cave. And entering the area, I had the stalactite in the distance overgrown with greenery and bats flying upwards to encourage the player to look up, noticing the magnet. From this entry point, the player gets a good overview of the area and its points of interest. Visible is the player button, the magnet, and the ball button inside the cage. And stepping on the button, the player notices the magnet heading down as if to pick something up. With this, the puzzle's mechanic is naturally introduced. Right underneath, in line with the magnet, lies a pad, hinting the player where to lay the ball for it to be picked up by the magnet. And here, the player also sees the exit. With the ball picked up, it must now get inside the cage. And as the player is unable to move from the player button, as the magnet would then drop the ball, he must pull the ball towards him with the right amount of force. If the player wouldn't succeed with getting the ball inside, it is still within range for the magnet to pick it back up, allowing for quick retries. Hitting the ball button, the big exit in the distance opens. As the golden exit is the final area and only a door away from the outside world, I wanted it to be the more lush environment of the game, with greenery breaking through in several parts, specifically where the sunlight breaks through. And the main idea of the room is that it's supposed to be like an oasis inside this grand open cave. The room also had to look inviting from the other side, as it is supposed to be the entrance to this grand fortress. And with that, the player has escaped the fortress, which also brings this video to an end. I am Jacopo Antonucci, and thanks for listening.